G'day and welcome to a new episode of Ian Smissen's Photography. Today I'm going to be reviewing these two filters. An ND2 to ND32 variable neutral density filter and an ND2 to ND32 variable neutral density filter with a built-in CPL. Both of these come from K&F Concept. So let's roll the intro and get into it. I don't normally do product reviews, except for the products that I buy myself and I use on a day-to-day basis. I've been asked in the past to do several reviews of products, but usually those companies send you their marketing materials and a script, and they're really just asking you to do their marketing for them. But K&F Concept sent me an email asking if I'd like to have a look at these filters and do a review of them. I said yes on the condition that I'd do the review based on my personal experience and I would publish it on YouTube, regardless of whether it was good, bad or indifferent, and they agreed. So they must be fairly confident in the quality of their product. So I'm going to look at these filters from 7 different perspectives: packaging, build quality, colour cast, clarity, stated density and how accurate that is, the so-called X factor, and lastly, ease of use in the field. So first let's look at packaging. Now you might think it's a bit ridiculous to look at the quality of packaging, but Steve Jobs apparently said that the packaging in his Apple products was important as the quality of the product themselves, because that's the first thing that people see. And I also think that it gives you a pretty good indication of how well the company values their product. First let's look at the variable neutral density filter. It comes in a beautiful hard cardboard case with a magnetic flip top. And inside that there's a hard plastic case with a little pop button on the side to open it up and nice padding on the inside. Now let's look at the neutral density and circular polarizing filter. It comes in a rather flimsy cardboard box. I'm not sure why they didn't use the same box as the other filter, but I've opened this one 5 or 6 times and as you can see it's starting to fall apart. But inside that there's a nice hard square plastic container with a moulded inset to protect the filter. Build quality is obviously important, particularly for fragile items that need to withstand the rigours of outdoor use. The variable neutral density filter feels substantial in the hand and appears to be made of high quality metal. The rim is ribbed, making it easy to hold, and rotation is firm and smooth. The circular polarizing variable neutral density filter is equally well built, with a firm and smooth rotation. The CPL filter is rotated by moving the whole front ring, while the variable neutral density filter is rotated using the built-in knobs. Alright, let's just have a look at these filters to see what sort of colour cast they have. Top left is no filtration. Top right is with the filter system that I usually use, the 3-stop neutral density filter. Bottom left is the K&F Concept VND filter. And bottom right is the circular polarizer VND combined filter. You can see that each of these filters has a subtle colour cast in comparison with the original. My usual system has a little magenta tint to it, and the two K&F Concepts have a warmer, more yellowy green tint, but they're very mild, and so I think they're both really good. Let's have a look at the effect of these filters on the clarity of the image. On the left-hand side we have the shot with no filter, and on the right-hand side the shot with the variable neutral density filter at its minimum density. And if we zoom in to 200% around the teddy's face, you can see there is almost no difference between these. There may be just a very, very subtle difference in sharpness if we look at the hairs around the teddy's eye here in comparison with this side, but this is at 200%, and at normal viewing this would be impossible to tell. So let's have a look at the combined circular polarizer and variable neutral density filter. If we compare it again, looking at Teddy's face, again the same thing. So at 200%, if we compare the eyes and the hairs around those, again, it's almost indistinguishable in terms of clarity. So the glass in these filters is high quality and it's not affecting the sharpness of the image you get with them. Firstly, the variable neutral density filter, and as you can see, at its minimum setting, it's exactly 1 stop, and its maximum setting, it's 5 2/3 stops, which is just a little bit denser than advertised. And the polarizing filter is pretty much the same. At its minimum setting, it's blocking 1 1/3 stops of light, and its maximum setting, advertised as 5 stops, it's actually 6 stops. A common problem with VNDs, particularly with wide-angle lenses, is a severe X artifact on the image as you rotate one filter across the other, as exemplified by this cheap filter on my iPhone. K&F Concept claims their filters are X-free, so let's have a look. As you can see with this example in the field, twisting the filter from maximum density to minimum density and back to maximum density shows no sign of that X artifact. Similarly with the circular polarizing filter, when rotating this from minimum up to its maximum and back to its minimum, there's no evidence of that X artifact. So the claims made by the company seem to be accurate. Now let's see how these filters go in the field.
Now I only have a 77mm filter to work with, and the front element on this lens is 58mm, so I'm using an adapter ring, and this just screws onto the adapter. Beautiful.
And the optical density is varied by simply rotating the outer ring, which is firm and smooth.
The way this one works is by having a little button here, or knob, on both sides of the filter that we can move around to change the density, and then on the front element you can move that whole thing to change the polarization. If I start to move this little knob here, the circular polarizer is sort of lagging but moving behind it, because the friction is holding that in contact with the front neutral density filter. So I'm going to have to hold it here with one hand and move the filter with the other to its maximum.
And this proved to be a bit fiddly, but with a bit of practice I think I could have got it better. So let's have a look at these two images shot with the two filters. I was shooting these at ISO 100 on a 12mm lens at f16, and with no filter the shutter speed was 1/100th of a second. With the straight VND filter and turned up to its maximum optical density, I was getting a shutter speed of 1/3 of a second, and the CPL plus VND filter I was getting a shutter speed of 0.8 of a second. You can see the colour rendition between these two is very similar. The CPL, as you would expect, just pops the colour a little bit, particularly in the sky and the sand under here, which means we've got the reflection taken off the water, and the reflection taken off here gives us a deeper green in the sea. So the CPL works as expected. There's virtually no vignetting in either of these two, except maybe for this top right corner here, which you would expect to get in a wide-angle lens with a circular polarizer on, because you get differential polarization across the field of view. So in summary, here's a comparison of the two filters with regard to each of those characteristics. I must say that I am very impressed with the standard variable neutral density filter. The quality of the build and the optics is fantastic. In fact, it gets a tick on all 7 of those characteristics. With regard to value for money, it's as good, if not better, than some more expensive filters that I've used. So I'll certainly be keeping it, I'll certainly be using it, and I'm pretty sure that it'll be in my kit every time I go out. With regard to the polarizer version of these filters, the build quality and the optics are still exceptionally good. They're the equal of the other filter. I'm not convinced that the packaging's great, but if you don't care about the packaging, you can drop that. I'm more concerned about the ease of use though. The movement of these two elements with this knob and the front element moving makes it very difficult to do without using two hands. It requires a bit of practice. I think I got used to it eventually in the field, but it's still just a bit fiddly. I'm also not convinced about the practicality of including a CPL fused with a variable neutral density filter. I'd rather use the two separately so that I could choose whether to have a polarizer on or not. But if you want an all-in-one filter and you're willing to spend a bit of time practicing, I'd recommend this filter too. So if you're interested in either of these filters, K&F Concepts are offering a 10% off deal until the 30th of June. And I'll put the code up here, and I'll put the links for those discounts in the description below. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, or even if you haven't, please feel free to comment or ask questions below, and I'll try and get back to you to answer those questions as soon as I can. If you've liked this video and you want to subscribe if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. Click the little bell so you get notified when I create more videos. Like, tell your friends, but remember, pixels are free, so get out there and shoot more. Bye for now.